Most players don't lose because they don't know the right answer. They lose because the moment arrives and the answer still requires thought. That distinction is everything. Not because the answer is wrong, not because the player is unaware, and not because the situation is unfamiliar, but because the answer has not been removed from the mind. In competitive play, thought is a liability, thought is a friction, thought is a delay. Thought is a resistance inside a system that rewards immediacy. This is the part people don't like to hear. They want to believe that more understanding solves the problem, that if they just know more, recognize more, analyze more, the outcome will change. But recognition is not execution, understanding is not control, and explanation is not action. Those are three different systems. When the moment gets dire, the game does something very specific. It removes time. Not dramatically, not suddenly, just enough that deliberation collapses. A fraction of a second disappears, a margin you didn't know you were relying on is suddenly gone. Enough to make choice fail. And when that happens, anything that still depends on conscious thought simply does not appear. This is not a psychological failure, it's mechanical. The system stops waiting. This is why players say things like, I knew what to do, I saw it, I just couldn't get it out. Those statements are accurate. The answer existed, it just wasn't accessible in the way execution requires. Most competitive knowledge lives in the mind. You can talk about it, you can write about it, you can explain it clearly after the fact, you can identify it instantly in a replay, you can sound intelligent describing it, you can be correct about it, but intelligence is not speed and speed is not urgency. Execution does not care what you understand. Execution only cares what can happen without delay. If execution still requires the mind to step in, it will always arrive late. Always. At speed, there is no room for negotiation, no room for internal dialogue, no room for confirmation, no room for reassurance. There's only execution or nothing. This is where repetition gets misunderstood. People hear muscle memory and think it means grinding, doing something again and again until it feels familiar. But familiarity is not automation. Familiarity is recognition without delegation. You see the situation, you recognize the answer, and you still decide. That decision is the delay. That delay is the loss. Familiarity reduces anxiety. It reduces surprise. It reduces confusion. It does not reduce latency. And latency is what kills people. Latency is a silent assassin. It doesn't announce itself. It doesn't feel dramatic. It doesn't feel like a mistake. It feels like nothing happened. A window closed. An opportunity passes. A punish never comes out. Not because the player didn't know, because the answer lived in the head, not the body. This is the hardest part to accept. Because familiarity feels productive, it feels like progress. It feels like preparation. You stop feeling lost. You stop feeling overwhelmed. You start feeling ready. But readiness that still requires supervision collapses the moment time compresses. Think about driving. Not racing, not emergency maneuvers, just driving. If every turn still required thought, you never survive traffic. The reason you don't think about driving is not because you understand roads better, it's because control has been delegated. Your body drives, your mind watches. The moment the mind needs to step in, something has already gone wrong. Competitive play works the same way. The system does not reward correct thoughts. It rewards actions that happen before thought is required. Competitive moments do not test knowledge. They test placement. Where does the answer live? If it lives in the mind, it competes with everything else happening there. Noise, fatigue, doubt, second guessing. If it lives in the body, it doesn't compete at all. It simply happens. This is why replay analysis creates such a convincing illusion. In replay, time exists. You can pause, you can rewind, you can reason, you can think through the situation in complete safety. And the answer feels obvious. sometimes embarrassing. You wonder how you could have missed it, but replay conditions have nothing in common with execution conditions. Replay is slow chess, execution is blitz. Replay rewards understanding, execution punishes it. Execution happens when the body acts before the mind finishes forming the sentence. If the body has not been given permission to act, it waits. Waiting is lethal. Imagine a fighting game moment, neutral, spacing established, both players hovering. One player sees the opening. They know the punish. They've talked about it. They've labbed it. They've seen it in replays. The hand twitches. A half a frame passes. That's not enough. The window closes. The punish never lands. Not because the player was wrong, because the answer still lived in thought. This is also why players blame speed. They say the game is too fast, that reactions are impossible, that everything happens too quickly. But speed is not the real constraint. Compression is. As time compresses, supervision collapses. Anything that still requires monitoring, approval, or correction gets removed from the system. The system does not choose what is optimal. It chooses what is available. That's why some responses survive and others vanish, not because they're better, because they're installed. Some players don't look fast because they think faster. They look fast because they are no longer involved. The decision was handled earlier, not in the match, not in the moment, earlier. In repetition, in placement, in removing supervision. This is why some players appear automatic in situations that cause others to freeze. They aren't calmer, they aren't braver, they aren't more confident. They are less present. The mind is not participating, the body is running the script alone. This is also why just playing more fails so often. More matches increase exposure, they increase familiarity, they increase recognition. They do not guarantee transfer. If every situation still requires approval, approval becomes the bottleneck. And when approval cannot arrive fast enough, execution collapses again. This is why players plateau while feeling informed. They know more than they ever have. They can explain situations in detail. They can diagnose mistakes accurately. And yet, nothing changes. Because the problem isn't a misunderstanding, it's placement. The answer never left the mind. Most players practice answers as ideas. They rehearse recognition, they rehearse explanation, they rehearse correctness. But ideas do not survive speed, only habits do. This is where muscle memory is misunderstood. People think muscle memory is comfort. They think if something feels natural, it's automatic. But comfort still allows supervision. Comfort still allows hesitation. And comfort still allows second guessing. Automation does not. Automation is what remains when the mind is no longer needed. That's why some techniques work perfectly in training and disappear entirely in real matches. Training allows supervision, execution does not. When the moment compresses, the system asks one question: can this happen without thought? If the answer is no, it will not happen. That rule never changes. This is why players repeat the same failures for months, despite knowing better. They improve their explanations, they improve their awareness, they improve their analysis, but they never move the answer out of the mind. So every time the situation tightens, execution lags. Not emotionally, structurally. The hands wait, the body pauses. Confirmation is required. Confirmation never arrives. That delay is what kills people. Not panic, not nerves, not pressure, latency. The gap between recognition and action. Strong players reduce that gap to zero, not by speeding up thought, but by eliminating the decision entirely. This is also why intuition is misunderstood. People think intuition is a feeling, a hunch, a spark. It isn't. It's delayed understanding. Understanding that already happened earlier, so it doesn't need to happen now. That's why people say, it just came out. Nothing just comes out. It was installed. Installed through repetition, where the mind steps back and the body steps forward. Most players never install their answers. They leave them in the mind where they feel intelligent, safe, and controllable. So when the moment gets dire, the system collapses politely. No drama, no explosion, no missed window, a late response, a correct thought that never becomes action. After the match, clarity returns. The answer feels obvious again, but it's too late because knowing was never the problem. The problem was that knowing still required thought, and thought was never going to be fast enough. That is why knowing the right answer still gets you killed.